Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Good Times Hour.
All right.
There's nowhere to take it, so let's go, B.
Oh, that's nice. I like that. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world, welcome to the 2023 recap tour. Was going to be the PB&J reunion tour, but we're missing one J. We got the P and the B,
Well, just the J. That's what we're missing.
just the J. Um, but before we start, I just want to thank, uh, as many of you may know, I like to do the research on our guests, and in particular, some of our guests have been playing for a long time. Their records go back to the 70s and 80s. It's hard to find information online, especially on the PDGA databases. So I want to thank specifically flyingdiscmuseum.com, incredible website. They got a huge archive of digitized print publications that start in 76, maybe even before. Um, and I've just been showing Mace some finds I've discovered in the Frisbee World magazine that started in 76 and ran through to 82. And that's just been a great source, especially when looking for the Valencia material, because or other guests who aren't, if they're not current, their database is not reflected. You can't see into their database.
Although
Not
that's
yet.
supposed to change tomorrow.
That's supposed to change tomorrow. So Steve Valencia is going to be the first one I'm going to check to debug the system. But even that, I have found, like I said, I think I mentioned in the Steve Valencia show, I found evidence that the PDJ database is not complete. There were over, especially in 1991, there were at least three events that were not even in the database. So when we look back at people's overall numbers of tournaments played, tournaments won, cash, yeah, we got to put a little asterisk there because it's not 100%. Although credit to the PDGA for
Well, and
doing such
it's
a great
interesting
job.
because Arthur Haverkamp's been catching up on what we've been doing and watching a bunch of shows, through the holiday break there, and he pointed out a bunch of stuff that was missing. And like actually, I think there was a quote that you had. He quoted something from your information for Craze, where it said there was only 9 players in one particular field over there in Europe, but he was thinking that there was between 60 and 75, and he was just wondering. Apparently, there was a theft of the PDGA funds, and it was optional to pay to be credited PDGA points at that event or something. Like there's a whole lot of stuff. I was like looking in the text and I saw it today. I was like going, oh yeah, I forgot to get back to him on this, but um,
Oh,
so there's other people that have evidence to that effect as well. So, and
well, I think that lines up nicely with our whole principle of philosophy with this is we're wanting to preserve the stories, but also enhance the archives. And so, if in the process of researching and questioning people and other information comes up, this only helps preserve the general overall archive. Certainly, an important thing, especially as we move from strictly an oral culture to more an online and therefore recorded culture.
right on.
Okay, so let's talk about 2023. Here we are with the recap. It's New Year's Eve. I don't know what it's like down there for you, but here we've had unseasonably warmer temperatures. We had no snow. It doesn't feel like New Year's. Feels weird. And Canada
Uh,
lost to Sweden. We got shut out. So this is just
Dude,
grim days all around. What's it
we're
like down there for you?
wearing shorts. It's like it's in the 60s. It's fabulous. I got this long sleever on because I'm at the shop and it's always a little cool here. It retains the heat or the cool. If it's hot outside and it's hot overnight, like it stays pretty warm inside here, or else it stays cool. And so I wore a long sleever. And I'm going to the game tonight, so and Chiefs
Oh,
are starting in 20 minutes. So, I mean, it's Sunday. Doesn't seem like it. Like this whole Christmas to New Year's gap, like I felt like it was Saturday, like almost every day. Like
totally. I
since my
know.
birthday, like since 22nd, I guess. I blew glass on that Friday, and then it seemed like a Saturday, and then the next day was Saturday, and then the next day was Sunday, but it seemed like Saturday.
Yeah.
And
But then
Christmas seemed like Saturday.
you drove up to your mom's for Christmas, didn't you?
Yep, yep. Went to Kansas. I went on early Saturday morning after fixing a couple things, and then came back on Thursday.
Nice. Well, we certainly want to extend, obviously, between us, warmest of holiday wishes, but also to everyone in the greater Frisbee family and in the community out there, all the people who've been watching our shows, been paying attention, tuning in here on Base Coast Live on Facebook, and just everybody in the Frisbee community. Best, holiday, happy holiday, season's greetings, Merry Christmas, whatever you celebrate. Hopefully, you're celebrating it, alone, together, doesn't matter.
Yeah, right on, man. I agree with that as well. Echo those sentiments and those greetings and wishes.
All right, so let's do a recap here. We started January 8th was our first show, 2023, and we started with Juliana Corver as coming out of our Christmas light season hiatus. Um, I thought that was really awesome that she agreed to be part of the show. It was great to see her again. Hiatus, wonderful old friend, and she agreed to be part of the show. It was great to see her again. Oh, you get feedback over there.
No, it's yeah, I'm really sometimes I'm really with it and sometimes I'm not. So I got that taken care of now.
That's okay. You worked in
Still
light,
on the
not
not
sound.
side of things in quite a few categories.
Any memories or anything that stands out from you or for you from the Juliana interview?
Well, it's honestly, I was thinking about it here, 15, 20 minutes ago. And if I said this about Kevin, but it applies to Juliana and to Roger and to Kevin. Like if you think about a lot of the good times, a lot of the stories and the memories that you think back on, one or two or three of those people were probably there. You know what I mean? Because I mean, like Kevin, like so many of my memories, so many of my funnest, greatest. I mean, like The Price is Right. Kevin was there, but he was only Roger and Juliana weren't there for that. But like just so many different things that Kevin's right up the road all the time. 3.5 hours away, so it's a good place for him to come and compete with a bigger crowd or a different crowd, and vice versa. And then, but like with Juliana, you know, I mean, it's just a flood of memories, because I mean, I stayed a lot of I stayed the same places as she did a lot of the time while I was touring. Um, she stayed at my house a lot. She stayed at your house a lot with, likely with both of us in either place, and so like a lot of memories with her, just a lot of road memories, a lot of big and small event memories, a lot of pep talks,
I don't
you
know
know.
if we talked about this. I'm pretty sure we didn't talk about this during her episode, but speaking about memories and staying, Juliana staying at your place, I'm pretty sure it was for veterans one year. And, the party after the tournament kind of came back to your place. We must have had, I don't know, 12 people at your place.
Yeah,
And
the one bedroom condo. It happened
yeah,
a bunch of times. A bunch
and
of times.
we're having post game celebratory cocktails and others. And where's Juliana? She's wherever she could find a space to stretch out her 7 foot form, and she's doing stomach crunches. And
Yeah.
we're all being irresponsible and drinking beer and watching. I don't even know what we're watching. They're just having carried on.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And that's those kind of things, I mean, how many times did we take her down on Queen Street in Toronto? I mean, how many, I mean, in just different places, when Dunapace made the offer to her at USCGC, there were still two or three events after USCGC back then, instead of just like the tour finals and the way it is now. And, like we went up to Terpasso's place, which is now called Blockhouse. It used to be called the Grange. And she was like, "Hey, I go, how'd everything go for you last week? We're just bullshitting, catching up because we hung out a lot, and she was like, well, Dunapace made me a really interesting offer. And I was like, oh, really? I was like, what? Ears are all perking up and everything. I was like, let's hear the rest of this, and so she basically told me that he made her an offer to come over from Discraft, and she didn't know what to do. And I said, well, I mean, you gotta, we both were instantly in agreement that Kenner probably wasn't going to match it, but he was still owed the opportunity to. And and she was like, I was like, so you got to give him a chance and just tell him what you're up against, and here's what the deal is. And if he doesn't offer it, if he doesn't follow it, then I think you're probably half, at least 1 foot in that boat already. Because I mean, her and Dave were pretty tight back then, and almost instantly back in that time frame. Not instantly, but I mean, they talked a lot, and they were hanging out pretty steady that week of the event of the USCGC that year, and I remember that quite well. And then she had to talk, and then she walked, and so that it's I've been around, seen some of the things to happen, and it's really, it's nice to see her. She when she made her first appearance at the memorial, she won in like MP40, I think, and she was like, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and it's really nice to still be part of the family. I'm glad to be back around and everything, and it's it's very true. I was thinking about that. I was thinking about it, but I really hadn't narrowed it down to a sentence at that point until she said it, in front of everybody. And I was like, yep, that's a good point. I'm really happy to be a part of the family and at the reunion right now too. So
Yeah. Well, we'll have a chance to talk all about the reunion coming up later in our schedule here. But you know, one of the things that we get from all of our guests, and certainly starting with Juliana, was the fraternity, the friendship, the fellow feeling that Frisbee engenders. And I just think it's awesome that she branched into freestyle in such a big way. She caught on to it very seriously, and I remember during the lockdowns, just coming across her daily freestyle videos, and I thought
right.
that's some people are baking bread. She's learning how to control Z's. I think that's awesome, and just shows the
She might have
growth.
been breaking bread too, though. I mean, don't kid yourself. She's definitely, got a very strong domestic side, I mean, with the quilting
Yeah,
and all of that too. So
I don't know if she'd stray much beyond sourdough, but she'd make a mean sourdough. I can bet. All right, let's talk about Raj. That was a great show. It was a huge break between January 8th to February 19th, but then we kind of got on back onto a semi-regular. And Raj is such a great old friend. I mean, you just
oh
listed
man.
Juliana, Raj, and Kevin in the same sentence. But what's a particular Raj memory that sticks out for you?
I don't know. Most of my Raj memories I can't talk about right now, to be honest with you.
Maybe if we go off recording and off live.
Well, I mean, the first time I ever played Redwood Curtain was with him. He took me to Brook Trails, which is another redwood course. Uh, I mean, those two, Stafford Lake, took me there the first time too. You know what I mean? To get to play courses like that with a guy like that, I mean, like a guy that's our age that can still whoop kids in a lot of situations,
Yeah.
um, and just that laugh, that accelerated laughter, that we get from him, and man, I think that I've actually got more memories with him than with Kevin, but it's really close. Um, and it's one of those things where like I I was a lot overly critical of Roger that first year, and like I was one of the last people that I was hanging out with regularly that just like finally was like, yeah, this dude's with us. I mean, blah 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 blah. I was so skeptical of him for such a long time for some reason, and I look back on that now, and I really don't know why. Because he's definitely one of my greatest friends. I mean, I've been to things in more states and more places with him than probably just about anybody else I know.
Mm.
And it's just well, love that cat. He's awesome. I mean, if you don't know Roger, or maybe I'll even go further and say if you don't like Roger, it's probably a problem with you, not him.
Yeah, I remember being totally enchanted by him. He was so typical kind of Northern Californian to me. He's just I can't remember what the type of car he had, but he had this little red hatchback.
That Omni was a
Um,
Dodge Omni.
and
And
he
dude, like
used
that thing was just as close to shit falling off of it as it was to shit staying connected to it. I mean, like it was
but he would play the dub, Jamaican dub music so loud, so bone rattlingly loud. I mean, I don't know if it was that kept the nuts in place or helped decelerate the whole car
It was probably
process.
tightening some and loosening others. And then somehow he rotated it and made it, go the other direction.
Raj came up to Toronto a couple years in a row. They always had some great times, great memories up here. I think the first time I met him was in '98. We were on that little mini tour. We went from Peoria down to where we go? Peoria down to Waco to Kansas City, Minnesota,
I jumped in at
Lansing.
Waco. Yeah,
That's
and
right.
I mean, shoot, look at that. Look at those three stops too, right there. I mean, like there's a lot of people on the list that are covered in those three stops alone. You know what I mean?
I had the first person I met when I pulled into Peoria was Bob Dodge,
Oh, bad dog.
and he sold me three beadless AVRs right out of his car.
And they were probably great beadless AVRs
Oh,
too.
one was signed by Harold Duvall, not
Nice.
signed, but just initialed, I should say. It was one I
Instead
used
of
to
a
be on.
stamp.
Yeah. Oh, they were unstamped, but that was on the bottom. Three unstamped beadless AVRs. Hello.
Yeah, dude. That's
Um,
every now and then you're in the right place to get one of those from one of them.
yeah,
I've got a couple Sams, and I think I have at least one Dave Pace too.
nice.
Yeah.
I don't even know what happened to those discs. I don't I shouldn't be trusted with expensive plastic.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about our next guest, Keith Murray.
Yeah,
Keith,
you know what? I've had a lot of fun with that guy over the years, and it's really he's one of the people that's helped me stay a little current, like helped with, like with all these, well, I've been going out there to the memorial now. This year will be the seventh year making those trophies, and it's nice to be there at that particular start of the season. Although it's going to be completely isolated from the tour this year because they're starting in Florida.
oh,
But the thing about the memorial is it doesn't matter. The people with cabin fever are going to the memorial and they fill it up whenever it opens. So it's always going to be a full field, and the top players that care about it will fly from there to get to the other side if that's how that scheduling works. So
and
it is what it is with that, huh?
did you are you doing the trophies again this year for the
Yeah.
for the
Oh yeah.
memorial?
I made the seventh one the other day.
Seven out of how
So
many?
they're all. I'm doing seven, and they're done. The pieces are complete. The
Look at look at that.
the graphics and the artwork isn't yet, but it's not a giant departure from the shapes I made last year. So it'll I can make some. I'll definitely have to make some modifications, but it won't take me too long to get that in order and
But here
be
we are,
ready to go.
2 months away from the memorial, and you've already got them done. That's
Well,
setting new
it's
land speed
yeah, like
records.
last year I didn't get them done until February, and in fact, last year I broke one on Friday, um, less than 10 days before the event, and I made the replacement on Monday, the week of the event, and it had to sit in the annealer till late Tuesday, and so on Wednesday I flattened the bottom so they'll all sit without wobbling. And then on Thursday, I sandblasted them and put them in packed. And then Friday morning, I left town with the sunrise and rolled into town with the sunset.
Wow.
Actually, rolled through Tucson as the sun was setting. And on the way out there, it's like 16 hours. And I had a chat with myself on several occasions saying that I wasn't going to do it like that anymore.
Well, okay, so you got a chance this year to change the script, and you
Well,
do
and
plan on.
I mean, you saw the tail end of it at USDGC last year where I just, I didn't have time and I didn't have patience and I was pretty grumpy. And it I'm not going to do it like that. That's if I
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I'm going to hopefully find out this next week about USCGC this year, and if it's on, then I'm going to start those almost immediately and get them done, like, and maybe even to deliver them in the spring, just so it's off my plate. Like, it doesn't need to be part of the August September at my house is already tough. I don't need to
yeah.
make it harder.
you don't want to be near a Nova Heart star level degree furnace in the middle of August and already swampy
Oh, if I
conditions.
do, I want to be having fun with it. I want to be doing what I want to be
There you
doing. You
go.
know what I mean? I don't want to have to be facing the heat already. It's yeah, so that being said, this I found a local friend of mine who's really amazing that he's just wickedly talented, and he happens to be married to Tracy Nations. Her last name's Von Eggman now, but my buddy Rod Von Eggman is he's working on the stands for these ones for the memorial and just the prototypes. I was like, yeah, we could just take that. Go ahead, put a finish on it, glue it down, it's ready. Let's go. You know what I mean? And it's like he's like, no, dude, this is prototype. This is just plywood. And I was like, yeah, I kind of like that. That's all right. But the possibilities are he's got a little wood CNC machine over there and he's just tapping into his talent. You know, he doesn't even realize like he's not giving himself any credit. He told me, he straight up told me, he goes, no, we're not going out there to look at that shit. You're an artist. I'm not showing you any of it. And I was just like, I was like, come on, dude. And finally Jerry talked him into it because Jerry was at the same, we were having a little get together over Thanksgiving. And Jerry was like, yeah, let's go take a look. Let's go take. So we all went out there and I was just like, holy cow, dude. And then like next day I brought glass pieces over for him. And, you know, before the weekend was over, he had that prototype sitting in there. It was just amazing. It was, well, I guess I could email it and share it. Might be a challenge. But so that being said, Keith, um, it's really been cool between Jonathan and Keith, and we'll get to Jonathan here in a minute down the list a little bit, but between Jonathan, Keith, and Ginley, which Ginley's two people down as well, you know, those folks have really given me the opportunity to really hone that part of my, you know, game with the trophies. And so I'm looking forward to, I'm really looking forward to not having the pressure in February and making this art, putting this art together on them and probably have them done in the first week of February and then go and deliver them and then go on that Stars Road trip and then really start digging into the Southern Cal people that the names that keep recurring and a lot of these people that we've interviewed, like, you know, Sam and Craze and Steve Valencia. And, you know, I'm sure we're going to hear a bunch of it when we talk to Tita and Sue Horn and several of these other Southern California players coming up. I'm going to go dig into a bunch of that and start, you know, finding some stories for when we have them on.
Nice. Our man, our intrepid reporter on the ground.
Yeah, well, you
Um,
know, I love to wander, so
let's move on to Jim Oates, the newly constructed second half or other half of JK and JO. Um, Jim Oates, another legend, another California legend, Northern California. Well, Central
Northern Cal.
California, Northern
Yeah,
California.
I mean Sacramento.
Yeah. Um, that was it was good to chat with him about. Well, it's always good to chat with all our guests about specific tales from the frisbee past. He's been a top level competitor for a long time, and I remember making his acquaintance at the '99 Worlds when he got into the playoff with Stan McDaniel, and I
Oh,
was a really big Jim Oates fan, and I think I wasn't the first one to like jump up and give him a high five when he won, but I was definitely in the top three people rushing to hump his leg.
yeah, he's well, I've known it's interesting, you know, because he's also very well known in his neighborhood and then, you know, I happened to be out there whenever he had that heart attack. And so, you know, like Juliana and I talked a couple times about it, you know, just you know, she was there and hanging in there with him and like she didn't want him to feel alone and everything like that. And it was kind of interesting how well, I mean, the opportunity arose. I was like, hey, why don't y'all just tell me I'll just do a drive by, you know, because I was going to Tahoe to ski, but I was also going down to San Francisco to watch this guy named David Patchen blow glass, and actually go to hang out with Roger. As you know, pretty much every time I go out to that part of the world, I go over and see Roger. So um, I did a little drive by. It was pretty cool. Like they were hiding out, hanging out by this. They went to this spot that was a window that was right by this drive underneath the drive it through bridge, I think. And so I pulled over there and just jumped out and gave him a wave and was talking to him on the phone and everything, you know. And so that you know, here's another way you can get around the rules, and you know, didn't break any rules, didn't get in there, didn't expose anybody to anything. You know, I'm standing outside, just look at the window. Hey, all right, hope you get you feeling better. All right,
Yeah.
I'm going to San Francisco. See ya. You know, and
I don't know if there's a worse time on the planet to have been confined to a hospital during the pandemic.
especially if it was gloom and doom on your part, you know, for what you were
Yeah.
dealing with and what you were going through,
Well, it
without a
obviously
doubt.
that obviously touched him very much because I remember we talked about that story first with Julian and then with Jim, and that was a really interesting and wonderful tender moment there. I remember Raj had mentioned something about Jim Oates, and I think he was talking about how they, whenever they're playing, I'm pretty sure it's not necessarily tournament rounds, but more kind of, I guess, money rounds or casual rounds. They love to mess with Jim, and so they
Oh,
stand.
it's during tournament rounds too.
It
Don't kid
is during
yourself.
tournament
Oh
rounds.
yeah, it's yeah. There's it's just like anywhere. There's rivalries, and then there's little subtle digs. You know, like that little like I always tell the story about when I was a kid going to church, and my mom would sit beside me, and when I'd fall asleep, she'd dig that elbow into my ribs, and she wouldn't elbow me, but she would get that elbow in there, and I would wake up. You know, and this is the same kind of thing, like that elbow, get that elbow. Oh, find a gap between. Oh, there it is. Oh, look. Oh, you're like, I need to fly right. Wait, oh, stop it. You know, and it's yeah, that area is not immune to that kind of stuff. It's pretty entertaining.
Great camaraderie. Okay, Ginley. It was great to see Ginley. He was a little technology challenged, but I think his daughter helped him out. He was in Mexico when he called in, wasn't he?
No, no, he was in Mex. He had to cancel because he was in Mexico with her, and then when he
Oh,
came
that's what it
back,
was.
they
Oh, right, he did it from the shop.
he did it from the shop, same place where Keith was.
Yeah, that's right. Want to
Hey, I'm
thank
gonna share my screen real quick. Check this out.
want to thank Dano for providing me with some good Steve Valencia road stories that we used for fodder.
Check this out. See that stand?
Nice.
And that was just like, yeah, you know, I'm just giving like two of these pieces aren't even glued onto the base, but it's yeah, there's cool things coming. Definitely
Sweet.
cool things coming.
Well, I know from what I saw at the USDUC, people were inordinately pleased to have access to one of your artistic pieces.
Well, it's I hope that continues.
Now you
Doing the best
mentioned
best I can with what I've been given on that.
oh, you're doing a great job. You mentioned Kev a couple times. Um, he also came up to Toronto, I believe, 2 or 3 years in a row, or over a span of 4 or 5 years. Just another one of those guys that just really kind of the center of mayhem, the center of the action, very charming, charismatic, top level player, funny guy you want to be around, the guy that fun things happen when you're around him.
Yeah,
And
without a doubt. And I mean, like, there's so much fun to be had around him. You know, I mean, it's I man, sitting there. I stayed at that house so many times, and I've already told this story a bunch, but I just think back to all the fun that I had just down in that house that Billy Moody owns across from Hole 18 at McClure. And then, but then, you know, there's other times you stay in other places, and so many, you know, like one of the things that there's this course called Devilio, and I'm not sure exactly how the city acquired the land, but it looks to me like they reacquired it as houses came available, but they never went and never tore up the streets. So like you go and play that park, and like especially the disc golf part of it, there's several times where you're throwing across an old street that still could possibly be used at certain times. Now, I don't know how much of this has changed because obviously it's been easily been 10 or 15 years since I played golf in Tulsa. But it was just kind of a weird dynamic because you were definitely throwing across streets that were part of the park that used to be part of a neighborhood that were, formed in blocks and stuff, but there was none of that. Like the only infrastructure you saw was sidewalks and streets. Well, this summer I went to Detroit to the Glass Conference, and there's vast hundreds of blocks of the old part of Detroit, like that. Like if you ever watched the old All in the Family, like when they're driving through the neighborhood and they're singing "Those Were the Days," and they show all those two-story houses with those porches that are the width of the. It's like that style of neighborhood, two-story wooden houses and stuff, and it was like it looked like a post-war zone because these houses are all gone. The only thing that's there that even gives you an idea that what was there before is the streets and the sidewalks, and like the street we stayed on one side of the street, there was three houses. They were all Airbnbs. They were questionable, but not questionable. I mean, they were acceptable Airbnbs, but I don't know if you would have actually lived in them in those states. Like you would have probably done more work to them. But that instantly took me back to Devilio, and I was like, well, I've never seen anything like this since I played in Tulsa, Oklahoma at Devilio, and it's like kind of what I expect that Kyiv is going to look like when Russia and Ukraine stop going at each other's throats. Like when it's all gone, when they take away the rubble, gonna be a bunch of neighborhoods that are just leveled.
Yeah, or it's like you see footage after huge major fires sweep through, burn everything down.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Very good point too.
I don't know about you. I know, no, sorry, I do know about you. You had met Jennifer a long time ago, but for me, this was the first time I ever met her doing the show, and
oh yeah, right on.
that was just a wonderful show. That was she's a wonderful personality, and since then, I've listened to a bunch of the PDGA radio broadcasts to do some research on some of our guests, and she's a great personality. Getting to see her in person there at the USDGC just
well,
further
she's not shy.
That she isn't.
I mean, she'll talk to everybody in front of everybody, and and yeah, I don't think she's got a shy bone in her body when it comes to that. Like, just saying speaking her mind and saying what needs to be said.
Yeah, I think she's doing amazing work, and we need more. I mean, distance record holder, distance poster girl. We need more strong female representation, and she's definitely the right person to lead that
Yeah,
charge.
she's definitely got strong female representation covered.
Was she there at the Pioneer Women of Disc Golf?
Oh yeah.
Panel?
So they did the panel afterwards, and her and Rebecca Duffy did that.
Okay, we'll get a chance to talk about her. All right, let's shift into soup mode here. It was our first attempt at doing this NHL playoff picks.
Oh no, that was our second attempt at doing it.
Well, it's our first recorded version, and I actually have the records right here. Look at that.
Oh yeah, it's getting worse, not better.
Oh, so first of all, that was a great excuse to have reason to talk to Tim McGill on a more frequent basis.
Yeah, for sure. That was good times. That alone was real enjoyable, because I mean he's got the insight, played, some, and still knows a bunch of people that are current in some of the, the lower levels in Minnesota in terms of making their way up, and that kind of thing's really cool.
Yeah, and he definitely had done his homework. He prepared himself well. He wasn't so fortunate in the first round choosing. So I don't know what day that was, but April 16th was when we got together and we did our picks. And from that first round, I hate to say it, but I got the majority of points on the first round.
I hate to say it, he says, like, liar, 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 liar. I hate to say it.
So let's look at the
At
playoff
least be
picks.
sincere when you lie.
We, you and I both picked Dallas over Minnesota in the first round. That was an interesting one,
That was an
especially
easy pick.
Timmy from Minnesota. But Dallas
Knew
at
he wasn't
6.
going with it.
No, of course not. He had to go. But he said Minnesota in 7. And we did have participation for the first 3 rounds from Jack Lowe.
If
Jack,
you call it that.
unfortunately, he did some wrong choosing. The only right
Like a
choice he
bunch
made
of it.
was in the first round. He chose Edmonton over LA. We all chose Edmonton over LA.
Yeah, and that was no good.
Well, I mean, Edmonton passed the first round, but they didn't get too much further beyond that. Sadly, um,
I don't know. They might even get it, might not even make the first round this year.
when it came to Vegas, Winnipeg, all of us chose Winnipeg. What in the
Man,
hell is going on with Vegas? I don't understand. I don't like it, but there it is. And Boston, Florida, we all chose Boston. I was the one who chose Boston as sweep. You guys all said Boston in 5, and we didn't really know much about that, did we?
yeah, that's a. I don't know that anybody can still explain that crap. I mean, like that's so Jim Montgomery. We had him. We'd probably still have him if he wasn't an alcoholic when we had him. And I'm not saying that as like as speculative. He actually got reprimanded by the team. He was like drinking in this place called Moxie's, which is owned by Gallardi, the team owner, and they told him that he needed to keep it out of the public eye at the very least. And then apparently he got all lubed up and he was in an elevator and he said some things in front of the wrong people and they called him on the carpet and told him that was his last trip on the carpet. And so, but he went immediately into treatment and everything. And then, it took a little while and he was assistant, I think, for St. Louis when they won, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that, but he definitely got, worked his way back up. And, I think that he was always a solid coach, but we didn't really get, you know, well, we found one of his design flaws.
All right. Again, Jack Lowe showed his hockey savvy by choosing Tampa over Toronto in the first round. We all know how that worked out. Toronto's first dance to the second round in almost 20 years.
Yeah, and you're almost over that right now, I noticed too.
Yeah, no, we're still cleaning up the confetti from the parade route. That Carolina, New York Islanders, that was a bit of a split. Timmy and Jack both said Islanders. We said Carolina. And you actually called Carolina at 6. That was a good one. And then Jersey over Rangers. Again, Jack Lowe was the only dissenting voice by choosing the Rangers. We all chose the Devils. And the first round ended off with B with 13, Mace with 9, Timmy with 5, and Jack with 1. That carried us forward for a little bit. Right into our next interview with Brad Schick.
It's always good to talk with Brad.
Brad's a great guy. Always one of those guys that looks young and looks like he's smiling almost all the time.
Yeah, and you didn't just mistake him that he's that good because he will beat you.
Yeah.
In the open division.
He's been a fixture on the Can-Am tour. Definitely come to Toronto multiple years. I savaged him pretty good at the Timmel this year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He was hanging around listening to some of the others like leading up to the first card. And he, after I can't remember which one I said, but he was like, ouch, that's painful. And that's not even me. Oh, please go easy on me. I won't read you here what I said about him, but I savaged him pretty good.
Nice.
But he's a good sport. He took it. All right, now let's talk about Jonathan Poole. This was, I think, JP's 3rd time on the show. We had him as a special guest the first time our first year, June. And then we had him while you were at the USDGC, the 24th edition.
Yeah, right, for
had him
sure.
live, and then we brought him on and we talked a bit more about basically about the USDGC. We didn't talk more about old time stories. We were just more talking about coming up in the future,
Yeah, yeah,
especially
that's
build up for the 25th.
yeah, that was what that episode was about. Was primarily about was just talking about what the plans were in April for what was going to go on in October, and it was a pretty amazing event. It was pretty, I mean, we'll talk about it more here in a little bit, but it's always nice to sit down with Jonathan and, shoot, if you can get an hour of his time, you better enjoy it
Yeah.
because when he gets into the groove, man, he's doing a Zoom at like the top of 5 or 6 hours of the day, and trying to get him done in about 40 minutes so he can take a little break and then get ready for the next one. And it's a lot of work, I mean, there's not really any time to drive to work if that's the kind of, you're going to get up and start popping like that because there's a few other things he's got to take care of too.
Well, he works hard, but honestly, from what I see, and of course, he could have other sides, but he keeps it under control. He's always graceful. He's always calm, charismatic, very personable, professional. I've never once seen him publicly lose his cool. And he is just the consummate leader and consummate visionary to exactly what disc golf needs, especially at the highest level like that.
I met him in 97. Really, I probably met him in 95, but if it did, I think I did, but if I did, it was just real briefly at AmWorlds there in Cincinnati. But we were very aware of who each other were in 97. And I've only heard him yell about 3 times in that whole period of time that I've known him, and certainly wasn't anybody else hearing it.
And you've spent a lot of time with him. Like
Yeah,
you guys used to go on snowboarding vacations too. The dude's a leisure.
we've done that. We've done a couple of that a couple times. I've stayed with him a lot at Worlds and in other places else, other big disc golf events that we weren't involved with the operation of. And yeah, he's definitely been one of my big allies in the sport for a long, long time, right there after Brandon, and it's well, I know his kids and I've known him I've known him since before kids. And so yeah, it's definitely seen a lot of progress in the sport because of looking over his shoulder basically from backing him up and obviously and working a lot of the all 25 of the USCGC so far and a few other things besides that, but just to see where everything is right now, if you want to that pace setter award I think is probably one of the most fitting awards he could be given
Yeah.
in the sense that regardless of who made it, but that term pace setter, I mean, if you look at where we're at with all the cool stuff that's going on in the sport, a lot of it a lot of it can go right back to him. A lot of the things that he's pushed in the USCGC have either been borrowed and fine tuned by other people as well. And, a lot of things that we're enjoying right now in this day and age and the state of the sport and the life of the sport, a lot of that stuff was instigated by Jonathan Poole.
Can't wait to see what he comes up with next.
Yeah, for sure. There's no question about that. No
All right.
question about that.
Round two was a little better for you. Less points on the table. May 10th, May 2nd, we got together with Timmy again for round two picks. Dallas, Seattle, we all went with Dallas. That was the right call. Even Jack Lowe went with Dallas, which was finally the
Man,
right
that
call.
guy, at least he jumped on board at some point.
Vegas, Edmonton, we all called Edmonton.
Well, I think that, you know, if you look at it on paper, that should have been the way it went. But
I know.
if you're not taking into consideration that defensive line for Vegas, then you're in the same boat as a whole lot of people, and a whole lot of people were wrong.
And same also with the Florida Toronto. We all went with Toronto, high powered offense. How can you go wrong?
Yeah.
Sure, Florida beat Boston, but that was a blip. They're going to be beat up by the time they see us.
Yeah, I'll be surprised. It won't surprise me at all if Florida doesn't do what they even come close to doing what they did last year in the playoffs this year. But who knows? We'll see. I'm going to be
But,
skeptical until they really actually do it.
but that's why they called playoffs the second season, right? It's forget what happened in the because you have
It's
teams
true.
that go on hot streaks to finish the season and then they get swept in the first round. How often does that happen?
Or teams that go on an entirely hot season and then oh wait, it's not even the end of the second week of the playoffs and you're playing golf already.
Toronto's guilty as charged. And the final
Not this
matchup,
year.
Jersey, Carolina. Timmy, me, and Jack Lowe all chose Jersey, and you alone called Carolina. So you made up a bit more ground there, and as the teams get eliminated and things get a little more interesting. Next up, we have Pete May. My goodness, what an
Dude,
incredible gentleman he is.
Pete.
I,
I mean, well, it's man, like I learned a long time ago. There's people like Pete. People like Pete. I say this all the time. You go and have a conversation with Pete. You need to go with an empty bucket, and then just hope that as much of the conversation as possible falls into the bucket, and then you go home and you get in the bucket and you look and see what you got from it. And it's man, if you don't learn something every time you talk to Pete, you weren't paying attention.
that's a good way of putting it.
I mean, it's he's got an unbelievable amount of experience. He's in his mid 80s. He's still whooping people at ping pong and whooping people at disc golf, and he's driven to do it. And
His energy levels, I don't know where he gets it from at that age.
I guarantee he's not drinking Red Bull. And and
Guaranteed.
he's got a lot of experience. And it's if you got a question, if you need to ask an old guy something, that's the guy to ask. I mean,
Well, it's funny. At the USDGC this year, at the Vendor Village, when the bands were coming on, I think it was the second night. Pete had come up to me. It might have been the first night actually, and he was like, "Well, we're on a cruise ship. This isn't a festival. This is a cruise ship, and we need a cruise director." And so what he meant by that was somebody needed to take control of the party. Somebody needed to get up on stage and get it hype, and build it up. We could look at this next band. Look at these guys are on, whatever. If no one, if there's, I don't think there's anyone more natural a hype man than Pete May. And the fact that
oh,
he was telling me like I should be doing that. I'm like, Pete, what do
you should be doing
you,
that.
you're already wearing the cowboy hat and the matching chaps. What do you got to get up there on stage? But that interview with Pete was sincerely, I think that was one of the highlights for me for 2023. I'd never really known Pete before that. I remember meeting him once at a USDGC, I think in '06 or '07, and just seeing him play ping pong. I was just, who is this loud talking
Dude.
ping pong stalking
And he would play
mofo?
with his offhand.
But
A lot of the times he was playing with his offhand and he'd still be whooping people. And he knew exactly what it was going to do. And he'd tell you,
oh yeah,
okay, it's going to hit over there on your left and it's going to go to the right off your paddle. And there's nothing you can do about it. And there's nothing you can do about it.
yeah. It's he's charming, he's eloquent, he's charismatic, he's definitely finely dressed. He's got style. He's absolutely the right person to be there as like the honorary marshal for the intercollegiate or the collegiate championships.
Well, he's back in charge of that again.
Yeah, he's absolutely he's just as you say, you got to bring that empty bucket because he's just coming up with endless streams of ideas and concepts and really good ones.
Well, and he's had that like his whole life, and he's been put in a position. That's the thing is like there's a lot of people that are capable of doing that kind of thing, but they weren't ever put in the right position to do it. And he worked. I can't remember the guy's name, but he
Uh,
talks about him. He talks about him in the interview. The guy that he worked for years and years and years, and that guy, he was just in a position to stroke checks for these ideas and these projects and stuff. And you know, it's it's pretty cool I've gotten to do that a couple times in the entertainment business where they just were like, yeah, what do you need? And it's not like they were even asking me that. They were asking other people, but I was on those people's crews and they're like, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? And you ask them for stuff and the next day you show up and it's there. It's pretty neat. It's pretty cool. Like it's not there's nobody standing on your tail in those situations, you know, and that's a really liberating feeling when you're used to someone standing right there, not only standing on your tail, but they're tapping their foot while they're standing on your tail, you know, with the other foot or with that foot sometimes. And you're like, do you realize how irritating you are right now? Like, if you just go home, we could get this done. Like, if you could just leave for an hour and a half, we'd be done with this stuff.
I don't know if we could. Pretty sure the guy's name was William that he worked
Yeah.
for. You know, he controlled the company. I think that was pretty large
Scripps Howard
conglomerate.
News Service or something like that.
I don't know where I put that.
But yeah, so that
Billy
guy,
Morris.
huh?
Billy Morris.
Billy Morris.
He did reference him multiple times during the interview as you know, kind of a patron saint type figure. Certainly someone who could enable Pete to do the things that Pete does best.
Right?
All right, now we move on to the father of the Twinsters, Steve Brinster, May 16th. That also was a great show, especially for me because I haven't seen Steve since I believe 2009, last time I was at the USDGC. And Steve, I maintain a close. Well, there's always a close bond because I think when he came up to Toronto with I can't remember the name of the guy he was with. He was on tour with, I think his name was Kevin from Philly. But anyways, he came up to Toronto and
Kevin Bigelow?
yeah, that's right.
Kevin Big and Slow? No, that
Bigelow.
was no. Kevin Bigelow's from the Twin Cities.
Okay,
Um Kevin Lebowski,
that's what it was.
the other Big Lebowski.
Yeah, the big. But Kevin was with his girl that they were dating at the time, and Steve was kind of the third wheel. So Steve stayed with me at my apartment, and he had just turned 19. So in the States, you can't be drinking, but we took him out. We got him hammered. I remember we took him to the Octopus Lounge, and he was loving it.
There's no drinking in Canada. What are you talking about?
But yeah, another
Planet Team drinking.
for me, one of the personal highlights with Princeton was being the DJ for his wedding. And Natalie and I still talk about his wedding, especially the Gangloff disappearing act story. But that was just such a special time. There's and it's great to see that they're together. They're still in love. They're still so wonderful together.
Well, and I was gonna say they're still really they're very youthful and they're very exuberant, just like they always have been. You know, I mean, like it's that air. Life hasn't beaten that out of either one of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Leslie works in the healthcare industry as a nurse, and so I mean that could easily just this what we've gone through in the last. I've known several nurses who like just were like, yeah, I'm done with this shit. You know, after what we've dealt with the last 3 years, and you know, it's those two even just like when I see them at USCGC, and maybe it's their kids. Maybe their kids are just keeping them young, as opposed to you know running them into the ground. Like some people's kids, have that effect on the parents. And so that yeah, it's good to see those two for sure. Always.
And Steve, Steve's had some pretty strong tournament performances, pretty elite level player. I think one of his shots, I think it was at Maple Hill, made it to the ESPN SportsCenter top 10 for the day. I
Well,
think there's that ace over the water.
yeah.
They threw it a rock, just beautiful, dead straight. And thanks to cameras now, the technologies and the skill, we're getting those sweet shots where we can do the multiple angles and the replays and the slow mos. This golf is coming into its own.
Well, he also he won USCGC at a later age too,
Yeah.
and he won my first trophies. He won the
Wow.
first place trophy that I made for USCGC, so that's kind of cool for me
That's a
from a
very
nostalgia
cool.
standpoint. And
Absolutely.
then the I'm sure you saw it this year too, but the Twinsters were like hanging out with us quite a bit because of Lola and the putting contest, and
Yeah.
and just watching those kids, watching that whole dynamic with all those young players who are teammates but rivals at the same time, and 9, 10, 11, 12 year olds, just, and even the boys and the girls, and that was one thing that was really cool at USCGC about with them, but also with Eliezra's siblings. Those kids were just rallying around each other and with the other kids as well. So that was I like that little dynamic there a lot at the championship.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that later, but
All right. Well, let's continue third round of the playoffs now. Where my team's definitely out, so I stopped caring. We've got in the West, it was Dallas versus Vegas, and Timmy was the only one who called Vegas correctly. We all called Dallas. Oh, that was a tough one.
yeah, well, yeah.
Florida, Carolina, absolutely nobody in the East Coast cared about this matchup whatsoever. So it was a pure guessellation right there, which Timmy and I did right. We called Florida. Um, what did Florida win in 5? Is that what it was?
I don't know, but that's pretty surprising.
It is. It is surprising. So that was a lot easier to do the picks on that one, and a lot more painful for me personally because I was crying inside.
Well, but like I think you kind of got over it,
Yeah, alcohol helps.
sort of.
Now, we've been talking, a lot of the people we've been talking so far in the recap of 2023 have been very close friends of ours, good people that we've had a lot of great times with. This was my first time meeting Andy Lehman Young, and it was an absolute pleasure. She is a
Oh, well,
wonderful,
she's
sparkling
just so
personality.
full of energy and bubbly always. Like
Yeah,
every time you meet her, she's gonna be like that. Every time, every time, every time.
and she really enjoyed the show, and she really got behind what we're trying to do here. And so when we saw her at the USDGC, she was going around telling everybody, these guys, you got to get on their show. You got to talk to these guys. It was really, I was really touched and impressed by her dedication, and of course what she's doing as the executive director of the World Disc Golf Hall of Fame. Super important to continue that, moving that forward, especially as we get into this. We're getting so much farther removed from the early stages of the history of the game. It's kind of a collective amnesia about what happened 5 years ago, let alone 50 years ago with Frisbee.
For sure.
So we recognize and we support all of the directors of the Disc Golf Hall of Fame, but specifically Andy Lehman. Yeah.
Yep.
Now she's been a fixture in Texas disc golf, well, especially Houston
Houston.
disc golf scene since she arrived, basically in the I think it
Well, and
was the
since
early
and
80s.
since disc golf arrived in Houston too, I mean, she pretty much ushered that in with the.
Yeah.
We played. I remember back in the day we played Fritz, and her and LaRon Harris showed up with like blue hair tour bus, two of them I think, full of kids from Houston, and they all jumped out like at the Fritz Park Open, which was in July, hotter than the devil's butthole, and these kids all just pile out of these buses, and I'm just like, holy shit! And then next thing you know, I don't remember what the first round was, but it was. I'm pretty sure that they ended up with more than 9 courses
Hmm.
around throughout the city, if I'm not mistaken. I thought it was 9 or more. But yeah, like that was at that time I'd never heard of anything like that.
Yeah.
We're gonna get this many courses installed. It's like, oh wow, that's awesome. What a big, you know, what pond you got to fish in to catch that fish?
I think there was a lot of, I think they had hooked into the Houston educational system, the public school system, and had some kind
Could
of like
be
they're putting courses very near schools that could be served by schools in an area, and they were putting maybe frisbee or disc golf in some of the curricula in those schools. I remember hearing about that in like the, I don't know, 97, I want to say.
it was definitely in the 90s
Yeah.
because yeah, I didn't really play the Fritz Park Open anymore after I went on tour because I realized that yeah, there's no reason to play golf down here in June, July, and August. I mean, when you could be up north doing it.
Yeah. And there's no
Gotta
reason to be
go.
playing disc golf in January up here when you can be going down south and wearing shorts like what you're doing right now.
Yeah, well, there's always merit in the 40-90 rule. If it's not between 40 and 90, then don't play.
So another guest that we had that I had never met before and also turned out to be fantastically charming and doing great work, Rebecca Duffy. That was a real privilege to have her on the show and to meet her. Had you had a relationship with her before? Did you know her
Oh,
before the show?
I've known her for quite a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I lobbied for a long time when she was the president of the board. I was like, why do I have to pay dues? I'm not playing tournaments. I'm just running events. In fact, I'm paying $75 a year so that I can collect money for you and then send you a check or, send an e-payment. And I think there's merit to that. I mean, if you're not going to play tournaments and you're staying current just to run events, then how about there's a different membership for that? I mean, if you're not going to play, and I mean, I plan on playing tomorrow, but I don't plan on playing a tournament anytime soon.
Yeah.
Definitely going to run a few this year,
Yeah. It's a good point.
next year.
Um, what is she what does she do for the PDGA? I can't remember now.
Well, one of the things she does is she co-hosts that show with Jennifer, but she is like part of the logistics. Yeah, this is great. We don't got all these questions about these people we interviewed this year, and we don't even know the answers.
You think we pay attention?
Well, it's
But
that
she's
was several weeks ago too.
well, it was
But she's been
so
around a long time in that sense, and she's for sure on her second tour, if not her third tour with the PDGA.
hmm. All I remember was when I was doing the research, I had the wrong Rebecca Duffy in the profile. So it's never fun to say something and have the guest say, actually, no, that's not me.
Yeah, they don't do that about me very much. There's only pretty much like there ain't very many Brian Maces.
No,
Just
it's
saying.
okay. So June 1st, we sat and we got together for a quick little Gab Fest to talk about who's gonna win Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, I was over that shit by then.
And
A la
yeah,
Toronto.
you're the only one who called Vegas. You got the right answer on the last one. Me and Timmy, we called
It didn't give
Florida.
me the win though.
No, it didn't. But we won't go over that.
Well,
We'll
so
let-
the one thing we need to say about that whole thing was it was unfortunate that Jack really wasn't in a position to to do anything but mail it in that situation. But um going back to, well, actually in this case it'd be going forward to several of the people that we interviewed from Kansas City in a row. Um he's definitely somebody that's on the radar for a Kansas City interview because uh he's been around a really long time, but he's been on the administrative staff of that club for a really long time, and he's seen a lot of projects um come and go, and we're definitely going to have him on the show at some point whenever he's available, hopefully sooner rather than later. But he's definitely somebody that we could, like I said, or like we said, easily go to Kansas City for 30 days and interview somebody every day, and then find 15 people that we left off, and he would definitely be one of the first people that would be in the next group of interviews for sure from Kansas City, in my opinion.
Now for this year's playoff picks.
But he's not very good at picking,
Well,
the playoffs. I'm just saying.
we'll still ask him to participate if he wants. But Juicy J, who was supposed to be joining us, but he's having too much fun at the beach with his family. He was kicking himself for not jumping in with us. So, and I kept telling him, you can get it on the second, third, fourth round, and it's okay. It's not too late. But he just never did. And it would be great if we could get Muller in on the picks too.
Yeah, and what's his name? Robert Leonard wants to get into, but he's a Carolina fan, so I don't know.
We
No,
did
I'm just kidding.
actually. We had
Yeah,
him. He submitted picks for the third round.
yeah, and
He chose
oh
Dallas
yeah,
in
and I think
seven and Carolina in seven.
depression took over in the fourth round, but I mean that that tends to, be inflicted upon you like quick, like swift, and without, what's the term I want, without any regard for your feelings about it. It's like,
Mm.
oh, F you.
Careless
Hold on a second. I'm
disregard.
going to kick you in the balls from behind. You don't even know why you're laying on your face. You're like, what? How did this happen?
So we had 4 rounds of playoff picks, and then we finally had Timmy Gill on for his own show, and that was
Yeah, that
great.
was really
That
cool. I
so,
really enjoyed, well, I mean, I've always enjoyed spending time with Timmy Gill, and he comes with a lot of knowledge. He comes with a lot of experience from disc golf and from hockey. And that was obviously, to me, that really made it a lot of fun, the hockey part of it. But I was there for some of his cool times too, like when he won the Memorial, and like I'll never forget, like when Keith handed him the mic and he just like kind of sucked the air out of the room himself. He was just like, it was just quiet in Dukes. And then, he said a couple things, but the thing I remember the most was the silence, and it was pretty awesome to be there to see that for him or with him.
right on. And of course, we were both there when he won the Worlds in Cincinnati.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a good win. Uh,
That was a great event.
June 22nd. So we starting with Timmy Gill, we started to get on a fairly regular with the broadcasts, and we crammed a few in, almost 2 per week. Like 5 days after Timmy Gill, we talked to Nate Doss just before the arrival of his first child. Congratulations belatedly once again to him and Val. But that was great to talk to Nate. He was one of our first true. We haven't quite settled on the term, but I think we've landed so far on young veterans.
Yeah, the young veterans. He's
And
definitely, he fits the bill on that for sure.
it
And
was great.
it's great going skiing up there this year and getting to spend some time with him and Val and Sharon and Cameron Roundhorst and Ben. But just, to see that they stepped out and 5 years later they're still stepping and it's still working for them and they're moving forward. And if you get to Bend, Oregon, you really owe it to yourself and to them to go over to Bevel and try to be there on Wednesday night and play their putting night, because that's a lot of fun. It's a great little event. And that he'll also give you some advice on other places to go if you're a real beer drinker, craft beer aficionado or whatever. There's, God, I don't know, he said something like 60 breweries in Bend or something like that,
And that was
between
the
the bigs
interesting
and the
thing.
smalls.
It was interesting to hear him as an artisanal brewer talk about, we support other craft brewers. It's not like, oh yeah, don't worry about them. We got the stuff. They're very much, at that smaller level, they're very much about supporting each other. And when you pointed that out, I thought that was amazing. How many other business owners are going to say, well, you should check out my competition. They're really good too.
Well, I think that's it's interesting, that takes place. But I think a lot of people there's two different ways to look at it. Like you can throw cannonballs at your competitors and maybe you sink them, but the water will raise all the boats, not just your boat. And I mean, you're all dependent on that same water.
Now, we were very lucky to secure, after multiple foiled attempts, we got Harold Duvall onto the computer,
Yeah,
and
and
that was a
we just got to the good stuff too.
that was a great show. Great, great guy. I mean, when I was doing the research, it was just so awesome to see old footage of him and Dave Donapace doing distance throws with pre-beveled edge discs. That was,
Yeah.
wearing the high sporty socks. But Harold's a very gracious individual, um, very generous with his time with us. I think he enjoyed himself too. When I saw him at the USDGC, he came up and made a comment about how much he liked what we did, and being on the show. So, you know, huge thanks, of course, to Harold, but not only for what he did with the USDGC, but spending time with us. I felt privileged. Just like you said, it's tough to get an hour alone with Jonathan. I think it's
It's
probably even
tough with
harder.
Harold too.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that's cool too. And obviously letting the cat out of the bag a little bit. And I'm not sure how this is going to develop, but having the two of them, having him and Dunapace on together at some point is really going to be cool too. And just because like the things that they're going to be able to tell us about, how this all grew, and they were pivotal. And there was a lot of interesting thought about some of the stuff we talked about the other night too, where those guys like that was a perfect storm. Like one of them, two of them had the money, one of them had the idea, the other person had the experience. Between Tim and Dave and Harold and Charlie, and that look at how far that came. I mean,
Yeah.
it's such a it's such a unique opportunity. You know what I mean? Like I can kind of compare it to one thing in my life was meeting Marie Gotcher in art class and then meeting Jerry after that. And then, like 2/3 of the people in my life that I really care a lot about are either glass artists or disc golfers, more disc golfers than glass artists, obviously, but either one of those groups I wouldn't know anything about if I hadn't met Marie in that art class, so like, and then Jerry was that gateway on top of it. And like those three guys were their gateway, or those four guys, like they kind of provided that gateway for the other three, so to speak, and like that's 40 years of just more and more friends and more members of the family and more, I mean, regardless of what you're throwing or where you're living and what you're doing, I'm like, we're all, this is the family, this is one hell of a family.
Yeah.
And it's, you know we're lucky to be right here in the middle of it all.
You bet we are. We're lucky to be able to talk to these movers and shakers of the game, and to have them wanna sit down and talk with us. That's amazing.
Well, and
Oh yeah.
those two guys back to back, the next guy you're going to mention,
Mm.
we owe all y'all a second half of a show for both of those,
For
Harold
both
and
those
Barry
guys, yeah.
Schultz, without a doubt.
Barry
I mean,
Schultz. We have so much material to go over with Barry, and we got to a certain point, and it just we didn't want to take up more time than. I mean, we call it the Good Times Hour, but it's usually Good Times 90 minutes
oh,
in
we've
some
only cut it
cases,
under an hour once,
and that
and
was you
that,
alone. I
yeah, but
wasn't
that I
there.
think that was one of our best shows too. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, Barry. I mean, what do you say about the other champ? I mean, the guy's amazing. He's got a lot of skills, been around a long time, and he's a good friend of mine for sure. And
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to finishing that show.
yeah. I remember the first time I saw Barry. I didn't meet him, but I saw him. I had come down and I played the AM Veterans Park in '96. I went out to, or no, sorry, '97. Went out to Vegas and I came back to play the, oh no, it was '96. I'd hung around to just like volunteer. I think I was a spotter for the Pro '96 VPO. And I remember seeing this guy, and he's wearing this white collared shirt, and on the back was this handmade, hand printed design of basically the replication of the rock stamp. And I'm like, who is this tool? He's wearing this hand drawn rock stamp shirt. And then during the award ceremony, they were saying something about, you northern guys certainly love coming down here and getting out of the cold, and he was vociferous. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, oh, he's a northern tool. Okay. Little did I know. No, but Barry is one of the nicest guys I've met as a pro when I was first coming up. As a pro, he would give you all the time that he had to answer questions, or I didn't bug him for any autographs, but if you bump into him, some of the pros are just within themselves, they're focused, their zone. They don't want to go outside that comfort zone. But he never was like that. Always very personable and gracious.
Yep.
Now, I think that July 10th, this guest, great guy, good person, not the best guest. We probably could have done a lot more to elicit more than one word responses from him. And I know
He's
he's
pretty
able
good
to
at
get
one word
people in the room.
responses, though.
Nolan Grider, great golfer, even better at one word responses.
Saw him last night at that party.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah. That was, oh, and that was one thing for me that's kind of a good reminder on that one was that was from the hotel room in Flagstaff on the way out to Tacoma this summer for me. And that was an awesome trip, epic.
right.
epic
Flagstaff was a
trip.
real kind of bit of a turning point for you. You got to see. Was that your first World Masters?
It was my first World Masters, and it's one. I was really glad I went. I wish I could have stayed a couple more days. But it was just the way that trip was really fueled by the glass trip, and I had to pick two guys in a gallop at the Seattle airport on Friday afternoon. So once I left there, I was on a bit of a time crunch, and I only stayed in Boise for like 5 hours, like literally, like got this total, probably the shittiest hotel I've stayed in the last 15, 20 years, and like literally peeled the sheets back and jumped in that bed and took a shower when I left and took nothing into the room, you know, and got out of there in like 5 hours. But it was a good nap.
Wow, it's a good.
You had
Right.
that. Sometimes you got to have them. A nap
There-
and two Red Bulls. That nap and two Red Bulls, and I was on my way to Portland.
There's Boise's. There's the town motto. Boise, a good place to nap. Now our
Good place for a nap.
next guest, there was no difficulty in eliciting paragraph length responses. Certainly one of the more
The next
charming,
two guests,
entertaining people I've ever met, Jay Yeti Redding. Um, Great guest. And yes, him and Des. We didn't obviously want to put the two of them together, just like with Juliana and Jim, each deserving of their own spotlight and their own, certainly their own intro. Uh, but just the both of them, they seem like grown up versions of the Brinsters, if you will. Like they've been married and doing it for 10 years longer than Steve and Leslie. And they're just still they're they're so vivacious together. They look at each other, they're talking. When you look at that Dez's social media, they're having a great time always.
well, and it's, if you've spent any time with them at all you got, and then there's a gap, and then you go back, and it's like, man, I mean, last time, not last year, but the year before, Jay called me up right before Christmas light season, and it was, it was during COVID, and he was like, man, I might come up there and do this with you this year. And I was like, don't you threaten me, I mean, don't say it if you don't mean it. But I was totally confident that if he did it one season, and I've said this about to a bunch of other people too. I mean, if you want to come and do this and do it with me for one season, I'll teach you how to do it on your own. You'll be able to go and do this in your own neighborhood the next season. But it's, I mean, there's definitely a learning curve there. But I mean, I got in that conversation with him, and it wasn't just that in the conversation. It was just like catching up and talking to him. And man, I've been a lot of places with them too as well, and sat in front of a lot of campfires and just had lots of conversations that, similar to talking to you. I mean, like, we can't get going without talking for an hour or two or three. Like, I'm worried about this whole thing. It's 4:20 and I got a game to go to, I'm just
Yeah.
saying. I'm just kidding.
No, no, no. It's New Year's Eve.
No,
We
we
got to
got
get
time.
working on this.
We totally got time, but I have been looking at the clock because, we'll go.
All
Just
right.
like
Well,
that
let's.
whole good times hours is probably what we should turn this in, hours and hours and hours. But I mean,
Another person that we never, I feel like we could get back to and have a second half of the conversation. Scott Stokely joining us in his camper van from Finland. It was, I think, something like 3 in the morning when he got on.
well, and yeah, and he ended up, I think he ended up
And he
winning
was
that
playing a
event too.
tournament. Yeah, I know, right? I think his tea time was 4 o'clock the next day. So he's like, "Yeah, don't worry, I got lots of time." But Stokely is certainly a lightning rod for stories, and he's a lot of the research that I've done on some of our other guests. I've had great starting points because Scott has been doing this as well. He sits down and has chats with people, usually when he's out at their course, and he'll sit down afterwards and have a 15-20 minute chat, and stories come out, and it's beautiful. It's wonderful. I got a lot of material about Michelle Marini from his round with her and chat with her. Same with Sprague. So, Scott, keep doing what you do out there. You are an absolute treasure, a national, international frisbee treasure, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone smile at the biggest, craziest shots or the worst goofs ever, and it's the same smile. So
Oh yeah. Well, and he's definitely thrown some great crazy shots and some big goofy ones too.
yeah,
And but and he's been around for a lot of well, a lot of a lot of this history. I mean, he was a kid. He's literally one of the first young veterans,
yeah,
and
and
he's not so young anymore. But
yeah,
even I mean at his age, the people that have a similar age range, I mean similar number of years of experience are 20 years older than him.
right.
Most of them, except for Sam and Steve Valencia and a few others, Chicken, different folks like that.
I found that story he told about possibly going to the Rose Bowl in '76, and instead they went to Disneyland or Disney World, sorry, or Disneyland. Yeah, that's what it says out there. I just love that. Yeah, we could go to the probably one of the, or was it the 50,000 tournament? I can't remember which one it
Either
was.
way, they were
Either way,
around for that.
yeah, yeah. Now let's skip ahead to by far the interview with by far the most amount of views so far on our YouTube channel, the most amount of comments when we were down in USDGC and I was meeting people, in person talking about the show and whatnot. So many people have referenced the Levon Wolf show.
Yeah.
That's the big one for a lot of people, and I was frankly surprised. Not that he doesn't deserve it, of course, but I didn't think that he would be that. I mean, I think he's almost more than double the second closest in terms of views.
Not quite,
Not
not quite,
quite,
because
but
we got a couple guys in the 90s now, but he's got like 163 views or something like that. So it's a
well,
lot. A lot of people. Well, and he's the consummate gentleman. I mean,
yeah,
he's been around forever. Got a 580 number. Could have been in the teens, but then so could Tom Monroe's number. So and he's 33. So
and there,
and
that's he's one of the first guys that we talked to that said I could have definitely had an earlier number, and so future guests we would talk about that. It was kind of him that was the base.
well, actually, I think that there was a few other people. We just didn't start making a big a deal about it.
Okay,
But I do remember a few others before that. And because, well, and even, and honestly, um, I remember, I remember making a deal like George Sappenfield said that to me in Flagstaff in the lobby about, oh, well, I could have. And I'm like, do you realize that was really, I think that was kind of the turning point for me where I realized that almost everybody we talked to up to that point, when they mentioned like, we didn't make a big deal about it until Levon probably. But if you go back and you look, if you rewatch these episodes, I guarantee you're going to see more often than not. People are going to say, "Well, if I'd have listened to," they said a lot of them say, "If I had done it when my friends did it, or
yeah,
if I had done it when so and so did it, so and so told me that I should do this, and like others were just going, well, my friends all did this and then I didn't, and we never talked about it, and then I decided to do it later, but I should have done it when they did it, I mean, like everybody's got a story, you know, uh, like Boxcar Mama's going to tell her story about how she took number 76 as opposed to, she was like, I'd have been way lower. I'd have been under 50, but I wanted number 76 because it was the spirit of 1976, I mean, everybody's got one. I mean, not everybody,
right.
but what is it? It's got to be 70%, right? It's definitely more than 50.
Well, it's funny how okay, she chose 76 specifically for a reason. Same with Dave Donapace. He could have had, you know, in the teens or even a single digit number, but he wanted one that he could remember. So he chose 987 because it's just 987. It's, okay, another young veteran, and my first time meeting him, but definitely a wonderful gentleman. And really, we could have gone on a lot longer. David Wiggins Jr.,
Yeah.
um, phenomenal guy, phenomenal talent, phenomenal distance. Showed up this year for the USDGC distance to basically just throw the distance and then go home. Um, but always with style. And yeah, I found that talking with him, it was really interesting perspective to get on someone who is kind of walked away from the game, but has kind of come back. I don't mean to sound so teen angst vague about that all, but I mean he kind of stopped competing for a very legitimate reason, getting his education going and becoming a pilot, not a
No,
pilot, but a captain,
uh, yeah, nautical engineer.
nautical engineer. But I mean he's got a certain status, you know, on the water.
Oh, yeah, and that's pretty amazing. And like I've known him since he was little, not as well as a lot of the North Carolina people, but because of the championship and the fact that he Tulsa Am Worlds, I mean, he was out there. I mean, I've known his dad forever. When I popped my calf with you in Ottawa later that summer, I'm in Phoenix. I'm in Flagstaff for the Am Worlds where he played there as well. And his dad saw me in the hall and he goes, "What's with your leg?" And we started talking. He goes, "You mind if I examine it?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. You're a doctor. I'm not." And so, he looked it over and we talked a little bit. And he goes, "Man, you got some good advice from somebody." And I go, "Yeah, it was Kevin McCoy, crutches and the ace bandage." And he goes, "That's really all you need as long as you stay off it." He goes, "Most people won't though." And it was just interesting, that he goes, "Yeah, you've done right." He said, "Just don't start getting confident and start walking on it. It'll never heal." And I was like,
Mm.
"Well, how long should I stay off it?" And it was just, here's another friend, here's another member of the family going, "Hey,
Right.
wait, come here. Let me take a look at that. Hey, you're in the right spot."
And apparently, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. The junior is just as helpful and personable as his father was. Is
Great kid, man. Without a doubt.
August 22nd, we had Chris Sprague on the show. That was a great reunion for me. Sprague had spent some time in Toronto. He developed a romantic attachment to the neighbor at the vinyl factory, and so he was frequently back in Toronto that summer after playing in 2006. And it's funny when talking about the PDGA database, um, because we didn't sanction the 2006 tournament, it's not going to ever be in the records. And I don't know where those records are now. I don't certainly don't have them, but I can't remember how Sprague did, but he cashed well. He was in the finals. I don't know. I don't think he won. Maybe he did, but Toronto definitely set an impression upon him, and it was great
Oh,
to.
it made an impression on all of us, dude, for sure. I mean,
But it was great to
I
catch
was
up with
skeptical
Chris.
of that too, and Dodge was always, "Oh, wait till we get to Toronto. Wait till we get to Toronto." I was like, "I've been a few places. It ain't gonna be no big deal." And I was wrong. And I'd actually been to Toronto at
You
that
had
point too, and I was just like, "Yeah, whatever, dude. It's another town.
one of the first things you
It
said
ain't a
to me
town."
when you found out I was from Toronto was you said something about paint chips older than you in
Maple Leaf
Maple Leaf
Gardens.
Gardens.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're in an old building when you go in there and you like see the pipe that they use for handrails. And like, dude, I've hung lights on that same Schedule 42.5 inch pipe my whole adult life. And you look at them and you go, "That's different diameter." And then you start looking and you go, "Yeah, because it's got 80 years of paint on it." And it's true, like there were several places where you see these paint chips and you could see that they were like, 3/16 of an inch deep and they had been painted over, probably 65 years,
Yeah,
just crazy.
it's like if you ever slice it to one of those little sugar balls that you eat the kids have. It's like 7,000 layers
Jawbreakers.
of jawbreakers. You cut through that and you see all the different layers.
See all those candy layers? Yeah, so it'd be all that different paint, but it'd all be blue and white.
Now we August 24th we had John Houck on, and we are going to have him and Dee back. We haven't fixed this in the schedule yet. When we look forward in 2024, we do want to have a course design focus at one point to have John back, because obviously one of his biggest strengths, one of the reasons why people know who John Houck is because of his course design and course design work. But we got a chance to talk to him about some of the other things he does, and I was really happy when I was doing the research to see him do freestyle. I didn't realize how much of a freestyle bear he was, and it was
Yeah,
cool to
with them
see.
stubby little legs and everything. I mean, like how's he going between the legs? Hey, I mean, that's one of those things too, you know, like it was surprising for me to hear him say this, but I'll never forget. Leva pointed out to me, he goes, "Man, when you meet him and then you see him again in 6 months, he's gonna remember your name." And he was really, and he had some little thing to tell you about yourself each time. That was how he remembered you, right? And it's there's people like that, like this guy that I used to see as a chiropractor here in town, man. People would come in and he'd be like, "How's Gary doing?" Well, you know, you're like going, "Dude, how in the hell do you remember that person, let alone that person and Gary?" You know, you know, I mean, this would be like 3, 4 sentences into the conversation, and you're just like going, "Damn, man, I can forget people's names if they tell them to me." You know, I mean,
Yeah.
like literally, when you get to the last name, I was like, "Wait, what was your first name again?"
It's John. How hard is that?
Fuck. Oh,
Well, we definitely look forward to having that John on again. I think I remember we had to cut that. I can't remember why we had to cut that show short,
oh, because we run late, probably.
but I remember to go. I had to go, and I had to, but just in like the
Oh, that might have been,
growing
yeah.
process.
Like you had somewhere to be. You had to get on a different Zoom for your mentoring one of the efficients. Was that not it?
Could have been. It was something, but I just remember like it was a 20-minute process of trying to say goodbye.
Yeah, and we
But
still
that's
went
good.
40 minutes long.
And he was very excited to be on the show and to come back. So, when we can talk to a disc golf legend, and certainly that's not overly hyperbolic to say that John Houck is a disc golf legend. Disc golf would not be anywhere near what
Oh,
it's like
no.
without
Yeah, for
involved.
sure. He's definitely a legend.
And for to have him come and and enjoy himself, that was really great. Talking about another legend, but in a different way, Hal Baby. That was a great conversation we had. It's kicking off the little mini Kansas City blitz that we
Yeah, I
have.
was just gonna say, if you took us out of the middle of all that, you got Hal, Tab, and Craze all 3 in a row. I
Yeah,
mean, 3 out of 4 weeks, or 3 out of 4 dates, I should say. And, you know, I mean, going back to what we were saying earlier about Jack Lowe, I mean, man, if you haven't experienced golf in Kansas City, like you really owe it to yourself. I mean, it's really a disc golf destination city, no question about it. I mean, there's just so many classic courses there, and they're steadily putting in more. There's lots of stuff I haven't played there. It's kind of like Charlotte. It's kind of like the Twin Cities. You know, there's a bunch of quality golf there,
yeah,
and then there's a bunch of quality golfers. I mean, and those 3. You know, Hal's one of my best friends in the world, without a doubt. Tavish is one of those people that, like, you're not going to meet another person like Tavish. You're just not. If you meet more than, like, maybe in your whole entire life, meet 5 people like Tavish, then man, you're really lucky, because she is without a doubt one of a kind, and one of the coolest people on the planet, in my opinion. And, you know, Hal and Craze are right there in the same company with her. But there's just something really amazing and unique about Tavish. Um, or maybe it's a bunch of things, but it's just, man, you know what I mean? Well, Natalie summed it up better than anybody. Like, I feel like I need to know her, you know, after
yeah,
watching her show. Like, and Tavish told me that was one of the highest compliments anybody's ever paid her. And I understand that. I think that, you know, both are true. You know, if you didn't know Tavish, I hope you get a chance to cross paths with her. I hope you get to spend some time with her. And I would say the same thing about Hal and Craze. You know, I mean,
yeah,
it's, you know, if you get to spend some time with Craze, it's going to be a bunch, because he's got a lot to say and a lot of stories to tell. And if you ever get lucky enough to have him invite you over to the home that he lives in, which is truly just a Frisbee museum and a crazy John Brooks museum, but like the stuff that's in that house, it's, again, it's amazing that he's been able to preserve it, because he
yeah,
hasn't been in that place that long. And he told me, I think he said at one point he had 6 storage units.
yeah.
And it's
Well,
like, man, and I'm, you know, like, some people just need to let that shit go. But like, I'm glad he kept his, because
absolutely.
dude, it's not just a room that's a museum, it's the whole damn house.
Well, one of the great little twists about the Tavish was she had to go over to Crazy's place to do the show from there.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you know, again, we've got another place where we had Ginley and Keith from the same location, and now we get Tavish and Crazy from the same location. As the Gravity Shack, is that what he calls it? His house?
That could be, yeah. I don't remember that, but
I
that
think
was that
for
was
me,
definitely.
I think for me personally, I think that was my personal favorite show, Crazy John. And I was a little kind of a little nervous. I remember you were sending me texts like, "You should reach out to Crazy. You know, you should talk to him. Because he's crazy." And then when I did talk to him, he's like, "Listen, there's going to be two people on your show. There's going to be John Brooks, and there's going to be Crazy." And I was just like, "What are we in for? Buckle in." But it was just such a fantastic show, and we could have honestly gone on for hours and hours and hours. And
He's
he's
definitely interested in coming back. He already told me.
he's also been very insightful in helping me with stories with, well, certainly with Steve Valencia, but also just some insightful feedback too. So praise, love you, buddy. Keep doing what you do. Honestly, can't envision a present or a past or even a future without Crazy John Brooks in the room. That's for sure.
Without a doubt.
Sam Ferentz, one of my personal heroes, and I met Sam in '97 when I went over to Japan, and even then I was standing out on Sam hardcore, and he's just one of those incredible personalities. He's stayed true to who he was, who he is. He lives his life with the same kind of philosophy and principle. His relationship with what's his wife's name?
Komiko.
Komiko, right? And with the kids, I mean, he's a great guy. He's so seminal figure, not only for being a player, but what he's been doing with Innova.
Yeah, it's and you know, and his name is constantly woven into the fiber of the fabric of the sport. You know, I mean, from and you know, like Sam and certainly Valencia and Leva and Stokely and all those chicken, all those guys that grew up together out there. You know, they had a huge influence on the game just from the way that they were the test pilots on a lot of these discs. Like they
Yeah,
bring these discs out and say, okay, here, throw these and tell them different things. And you know, I mean, Sam's still doing that today. You know, I mean, Sam's testing discs out all the time with Dave. You know, I mean, like just imagine like you're you're this teenage kid and these grizzled veteran, you know, late 20 somethings were nice enough to take you under their wing. And like at this point in Sam's life, he's still under that wing. He's still hanging out under Dun and Pace's umbrella. And, you know, really honestly, pretty much Dave's right hand man all the time,
yeah.
you know, or most of the time. And, you know, like, dude, the conversations that he's been privy to, you know, I mean, like I've been privy to a lot of interesting conversations at USDGC and because of my association with USDGC, but like I got like a half gallon bucket compared to Sam's 55-gallon barrel. You know, when it comes to that kind of thing, you know, that kind of containment. Like I've got to be involved in a lot of cool conversations and I know a lot about a lot of things that I won't tell anybody about because, you know, it was privileged information at the time. But, you know, Sam, he's got so, you know, so much more of that, you know, and so many, like just an infinite amount more of information that he can share. Like we could have him on 10 more times and still not even come close to
But
being half done.
when it came to having Dave in the yurt, Sam was the ultimate, the consummate associate and line producer for Dave. I come the quiet please, recording in progress signs, keeping people in garden, standing guard outside the yurt, constant chastising Dave about any Bud Light on camera. Now
Yeah,
this
well,
this is leading us up to the big week, but prior to the USDGC, you had to go solo, and for you, this was your self-admitted highlight of the year for the good times was the Pioneer Women of Disc Golf. You, I think, was
for
it 3
so many
years
reasons,
ago?
so many reasons, you know, I mean, the honestly, like I thought about that was so I got to that was the earliest I'd been in the Carolinas for the championship in a while. I think it was September 20th was the date of it. It keeps running in my mind. And so oh yeah, you got it right here. And so that, like stayed at Jerry Marie's, which was awesome. Um Tong's been my travel partner on that trip the last 3 years. And him and Lola are great travel companions. It's really nice to have somebody along for that ride and everything. And like I didn't know, like it's an hour drive over there to their house, from or over there from Jerry Marie's house to where they were having the community center where they had the players meeting and the festivities for that event. And I thought about it a lot, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I really didn't have an idea. I just had an idea like, okay, well, I'm going to interview 5 ladies when I get here, but I really don't know what that's going to look like. And, typically you and I are, together in separate cities, and our guest is in the same situation. So we're doing this from 3 different spots. And for all intents and purposes, aside from those interviews with Jonathan and Sarah Nicholson at USDGC Throw Pink Championship last year, that was the first live event for us. And it showed. It didn't show as much there as it did at USDGC, the following week or 2 weeks later when we were going at it with that. But walking in the building, and I started talking to Tita, and I was just like, man, Tita, I really don't know exactly what I'm going to do here. And she goes, well, let's look at maybe doing something in this dressing room over here. And she goes, come over here, and she showed me the room where the panel was, which is what Jennifer and Rebecca where they interviewed all those ladies. And then still was kind of thinking, all right, well, maybe I set up over here in the gym, because they were setting up for the players meeting for the US Women's Championship at the same time there. And the dressing room was, the whole gym had a proscenium. It was like an elementary school in the States. I don't know if you guys do that too, where it's a cafegimatorium, where it's like the school cafeteria, the gym for the school, and then it's the auditorium slash gym, proscenium theater for these, for like elementary schools and grades and middle schools and whatnot. And there's pretty much one of those on most every elementary school in the country here. But so I'm like looking at this, just kind of getting a nostalgia trip back, and we go in that dressing room, and she goes, well, I'm gonna have all the ladies in here. We're gonna start signing autographs here in a little bit. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just set up over here on the side on this table, and I'll talk to each one of you individually. As soon as Susie Horn walks in, and Tita and Susie sit down and start signing autographs, Susie goes, do you know Chris Brophy? And I was like, hold on a second. I go, Tita, I'm just going to turn this on and introduce all y'all, and I'm just going to let it go. And she goes, I think that'd be a really good idea. And it's the shortest show we've done. It's like 41 minutes or something like that. But I really feel like we got more out of that show. I mean, like, the Boxcar Mama story is in there. Like, if you haven't watched this episode, you really need to go ahead and get on our YouTube channel and tune into this one. It's only 41 minutes, and it's just amazing, the stories that they told, and they're all from late 60s, early 70s.
This is what the women were signing. I don't know, is that better?
Yeah, it's kind of tough with the
so
well, you can turn off your background too, and it'll work.
There's some of the signatures. That's what they were busy doing while you were in the room. They were all signing those, and you were asking them questions, and they were doing crosstalk, and you'd hear someone in the background go, "Oh, well, what about that?" And then that would be
total freestyle, just a total freestyle. So, but each one of them told a story.
And our plan is going forward, starting next week, is we're going to have each of those women on for their own show, so we can dive deeper into it. Because certainly Cheryl Newland, funniest of the bunch,
Boxcar Mama,
and that story of Boxcar Mama was just incredible. And she's got many more stories like that.
And we're not even going to waste time trying to retell it. Just go tune it, go check it out on our YouTube channel. You're not going to regret it. It's a great 41 minutes. They all have good stories to tell, and they all, like these events that you heard about, both of those $50,000 events that happened in the 70s, they were at both of them. They and the Boxcar Mama story was told about them jumping a train in Seattle to go to one of those $50,000 events. Okay, so if that doesn't intrigue you, then you probably shouldn't tune into our shows anymore, because that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. That's the kind of
All
thing
we're
we
looking
want to,
for.
the kind of story that we want to bring you is like, where are you going to hear this? You know, I mean, frisbee players jumping on a train in Seattle and riding to LA. Like, telling
I
you,
just,
it's a great episode.
even though you said you wouldn't talk about the story, we're still talking about the story. I just think the greatest part of that is they got there too late to play the
Yeah.
tournaments.
And they didn't regret it. Neither
And
one
they
of them
did
regretted it.
regret it. I know.
Neither one of them regretted it. It's one of the adventures of their lives that, you know, they still look back. She still looks back on. We didn't meet him, but Cheryl
Yeah.
still looks back on it as one of the best experiences of her, you know, pre-married life.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
So I have to admit to being a little bit envious that you were able to be there with those women. I really look forward to each week coming up in the next 5 weeks to talk with each of them. Um, and I think it's just such a great idea to have a special emphasis, special focus on the pioneer women of disc golf, because all of them had to play. I mean, many women throughout the history of the sport have had to play in tiny divisions, three, two, one, maybe five. But these are the pioneers. These are the pre-beveled edge disc women who had to lobby basically for inclusion into some of these tournaments.
Right. Exactly.
And I think it's just, we need more. And I imagine that must have been an amazing venue for them. I think there were what, almost 300 women playing in the women's championships.
Oh yeah. And you know, the one of the other things, that I felt like was a big highlight for me is I've become close with Sarah Nicholson over the years of being involved with USDGC since she came on to the Innova staff from working at the PDGA. She was in the sales staff, so I worked with her in the pro shop several years in a row, and she now she's in charge of Throw Pink, and that event is her event, and you know they gave her the service award, or was it the Brent Hambrick? What did she, man? Here we are. Here I am trying to. Here I'm talking shit. I talk shit about this all the time. If you're going to mention stuff, then know your facts. But I don't know my facts on this. But she got a PDJ obelisk, and she was just like, I can't believe you guys gave this to me, you know, and like all of her friends were in on it. And it was, and it's like, she's like, I'm like, yeah, no, are you kidding me? Like, I'm sending texts to her afterwards. She's like, I'm sending her congratulations from the audience. You know, she's in the audience too now. And she's like, yeah, there's so many other people that are more. I was like, no, 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 there's not. Like, don't even try to, you know, to like diminish what you just did. You got this award and you deserve it, and enjoy it, bask in it. You know, she's like, I've wanted one of these for a really long time.
Right. That leads us into the USDGC. That was a very special 25th anniversary edition, biggest yet. Certainly, it had been 14 years since I'd been back to the USDGC. Interesting to see how much it changed, how much it grown, how professional the whole running of it all was, how large the venue was. I mean, the vendor village was huge. We were very privileged to be right across from the main stage. So I think Mace Man got a lot of eyes on the Mace Man tent for as they were passing by. Um, we had some shows. We did the first one
We
in the
had some
kitchen.
struggles.
Had some struggles. We are going to have George. We did have George Sappenfield, the actual inventor of disc golf. We had him on the stage, but I don't know about you, but I could barely hear what he was saying.
He was tough, and you know, all that rock and roll doesn't help me with any of that. So, um, that was definitely not an easy one to hear, and it'll be nice to have him in a bit of a contained environment so that we can definitely hear the things he wants to that he has to say and what he wants to talk about.
Super
And you know,
important stuff. Yeah.
that's, you know, you want to talk about the first opportunity in disc golf for someone to steal somebody else's idea and run with it. Here it is.
Well, also he was, I believe, he started the World Junior Frisbee Championship. So I want to ask him more about that. It's hard to find more sustained information about that whole thing. So he's super seminal to the sport, and he's just such
Yeah.
a lovely guy.
He's the
Lovely guy.
first person I've ever heard a story where he goes, well, this was in 1968. And I was just like, I was not two. unless it was in December of 1968. I was like 1.5, just probably crapping my pants on a regular and teaching my dad what what he'd really gotten himself into already at that point.
We had a chance to really meet a bunch of older legends in the game, primarily because now the USDGC is the venue for unveiling the Hall of Fame inductees, or like the official induction
Yeah,
ceremony,
for sure.
which I think is a great thing. Having most of the players, if not all the players at the USDGC are younger players that qualify because they're playing at the top level, top tier events. But for them to have history put in front of them, okay, in order to finish this opening ceremony, you need to understand who these legends in the game are. And they even had as many people as could make it Hall of Fame, prior Hall of Fame inductees were sitting in the front two rows.
Lots of them. Yeah, there
And it
was
was just,
lots of them. That
I feel
was
like there
cool
were like
too.
40 people ultimately when they all went up on stage, maybe more. It was great. Just such a great, we talk about the family reunion, but this is also a chance for people to like sit down with their grandmother or grand uncle and talk. What was it like back in the
For sure.
pre-flight number days? For me, one of the great meetings from that whole week was meeting Charlie Meade.
Yeah, it was really nice to get to know him a little bit and just like I never met him before. I had really had a chance to talk to him and never really gave a lot of consideration to what he did over there.
Yeah,
I mean, I haven't played any European. I haven't gone to any European events. I mean, I guess Worlds in Finland will probably be the first one. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'll catch something else while I'm over there in June and May next year if there's anything going on already at that point. I don't know, but that is definitely a great opportunity, to spend some time with him and ask him a lot of questions. And
I'm not
it'll be good to get him on board as well, get him on for a show as well.
I'm not gonna take this out of its casing. Maybe you can see this, but he gave us each. It's hard to catch that.
Turn off your background once and see if there it is. That's good right there.
He gave us the signed copy of. I think they give the Hall of Fame inductees 10 of these discs, and he gave you and me one each.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that this year's class was Bill Burns, John Dusler Jr., Charlie Meade, Steve Gans, and Kent Johnson. Good class, and Charlie, he certainly made an impression when he came in dressed in his Welsh, not Scottish, kilt.
Yeah, most people don't even know the difference,
No,
me included.
But maybe the best interview we did, well, certainly the best interview I think we did at the USDGC was with Dave in the yurt. That was a really amazing, privileged time to be able to sit down with him.
For
Fun
sure.
fun fact: he didn't know that it was live.
Yeah, no, when are you guys picking this live? Oh, it was we already did. And he was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's how we do this," And he was like, "Well, good job and good job."
I'm glad that he didn't know, because he might not have been so amenable to sitting down with us if he knew it was live.
Yeah, that one for me, that to me is a real close second because there's going back to what I was talking about some of the conversations I've been privy to that I wouldn't have necessarily probably wouldn't have been anywhere near had I not been on the staff for the championship for all these years and just been in the right place at the time that was taking place was, or included in some of the reasons I asked some of the questions. Like, for example, there's a lot of people out there still that think that there's multiple molds for the destroyer, for example. And I don't know specifics about destroyer molds because I don't throw that disc, but I could use the rock as another example of that. And there were multiple rock molds. There was the Ontario mold, before that was the San Marino mold. So San Marino, Ontario, Rancho, and then the Rock 3 and all these other, different molds that have come after that. But like those first three rock molds, those were truly three different molds. And when we went to, I remember in '96 when we went to End of a Night, um, on in South Bend, they used to have an End of a Night, and you could come in and ask Dave and Tim, and Harold would be there, and Sam, and any of the other guys, and you could ask them questions. They'd tell you different things, what's coming up, and this and that. Well, in '96, that was when that 8-time rock mold, which is the Rancho mold, the 8-time, the 9-time, the 10-time, all that stuff came out of the same mold. Okay. The Rancho Cucamonga rocks and all the King Quimo rocks at the time all came out of the same mold. And this will help you understand why there's not just a mold sitting on a shelf over there waiting for them to come back and run 8-time rocks again. Well, at the time in '96, the question was asked, "Hey, what's that cost? What's the tooling on that? How much is a mold?" And he goes, "I think we're at a point right now where we've got about $40,000 into it." And they're like, "You mean like 40 and then 3 more zeros in a period?" And they're like, "Yeah, $40,000." And it's like, well, so why would they have another $40,000 mold that they weren't using? We're just holding out. We're waiting. We're just keeping you at bay. We're going to bring these 8-time rocks in 2026. We're bringing them back. Just wait till 2026. You can't wait, can you? And like
You heard
I've
it here
heard so many
first.
people say the first run mold of this. Well, the only truth to that is that lots of times after the first run mold comes out, they go back and retool it. But that means that it was changed and it was altered, and that original mold doesn't exist anymore. So it's just another advance down the timeline on that. And there's only one person that can tell you that you're not going to argue with, and that's the dude who's not only calling for the changes, but probably signing the checks for those changes as well. And so that was one of the things that I felt like was a really good one of our big opportunities to reveal something that hey, you thought this was this way, but it's really not. There's one mold.
We have a possibility, not been confirmed, but possibly in sometime in March, we may have you on site with Dave for a second interview. Not confirmed. We're putting on the wish list, on the bucket list, but that actually leads us into. I know we got to wrap this up because you got to get going. I got to get going.
Oh, I got time. We're good. We're real good.
I got to get going soon though. But let's just finish up here. So after the USDGC, we had a couple weeks lined up. Um, we had to postpone the Steve Rico interview and the Valencia interview and the Dave Greenwell interview, all for different
And the
reasons.
Barsby interview too.
And the Barsby one. So we did get back to Valencia, but we still have outstanding commitments to Dave Greenwell, Steve Rico, and Greg Barsby. But we took the hiatus while you went crazy busy with your Christmas lights business, and came back December 10th with Brian Honegger. That was a good show. I think
I was a ghost.
the one thing that I should have talked more about was physically that office where he was beaming in from, and try to like reconstruct exactly how small it was and how two people working at maximum capacity could do the output of one person in that room. But it was great for Brian to take the time and talk with us. And we had originally set Brian up for the 17th, but Steve had football tickets, so we had to. And Brian was very gracious to do the switch on kind of 3 days' notice. Thank you, Brian, for that. And we finished with Steve Suave Valencia.
Steve Suave. Yeah, that was good. That was a really good one.
That was a great show. He's a great guest. The only problem from my side was I loaded you with a mountain of information.
Dude.
A 33-page script that it got you reeling.
The biggest one of them all.
Normally the scripts are like 8 pages. This was 33. So it was, Mace was a little shocked and chagrined.
I was like, holy dude, come on, dude.
Steve, I texted him or I emailed him a thank you afterwards, and he's very interested in coming back on again too. So
nice.
That's good news.
Well, and those old stories like that, especially those old root stories, like that are at the tipping point from before the bevel and after the bevel, I mean, like those are great stories. Those are, that's pivotal and key to our whole existence, I mean, and it's like we talked about this the other night, you and I, and it's really weird to look at this and hear these stories about how these big events were going on in the 70s, and all of a sudden it just went off the cliff. And obviously you explained to me about how Whammo being bought out had a huge impact on that. It's just so hard to wrap your head around um the time that it took for us to get back to this point. Because I mean, like, I don't know, I never asked Jonathan what his budget was, but sometime in the last 2 years he's told me like $750,000. And it's been a long time since he's been way over 200,000. And obviously that includes the payout too, because that's money out, money in and money out. So, but there's not very many events that are operating with that kind of, with a six-figure budget.
Right.
I mean, I'd say that probably, I mean, guess that, I guess that probably a lot of the pro tour stuff is in that neighborhood, because I've been told that a title sponsorship on those is a minimum of 25 grand. So, they're probably in the neighborhood of 100 and a half, maybe 200,000 on a lot of these bigger, lower level pro tour events. And then the upper ones probably get into I don't know. It'd be interesting to know what their budgets are, but I'm relatively certain that Jonathan's leading the way still.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting to know what some of the budgets are from the European tournaments.
All
'Cause
of it. Yeah. I mean, it'd be
those are
great to know.
huge spectacles. But back to your point about um, how in the 70s and 80s there was a high water mark in terms of money, in terms of size of events, spectators, in terms of national coverage and media coverage. And I think a lot of that was because it was they were overall events, and a lot of the overall events really lend themselves well to spectacles, to being viewed. Like when you think about the Rose Bowl tournaments, the big draws were the ones like freestyle or I mean, I hate to say it, but the canine exhibition sometimes stole the show.
Oh no, those are great. I mean,
They're great,
that's the
but
truth. And I mean, that's still those guys. I mean, you can go to the state fair in any state and have a better than good chance of seeing a dog show at,
right.
a canine, uh, you know, catch show, jumping, doing all that kind of different stuff. And, I mean, I've watched it in Kansas State Fair with my mom before, and that's still going on today in different places, so but it's not, I guess maybe part of what you're saying there, and it makes sense, is that the unity's gone in that sense. Like there's not MTA and DDC, and like a lot of those games nobody even plays at all around here.
Yeah.
A lot of those games haven't been played by, like, the next event that I run, which we haven't set that in stone just yet, but it'll be sometime in the next couple of months. But like, I'd say that probably really good chance that maybe 1 or 2% might have played some of those overall events, but there's probably a really good chance that some of those things none of those folks have played. You know?
Well, it's the joy of flight, the joy of the frisbee, and if we focus too much on the flight numbers and the beveled edge, we're going to lose that sense of magic and wonder. Because some of the people that we've talked, I remember one of the things that Crazy when he talked about his when we talked to people, one of the questions we asked was their origin story. And Crazy's when he saw the first nail delay, or no, it was a tip, and it froze him. And he's just like transfixed by that. Or John Hout just loving, you
Yeah,
know,
it was wasn't Craze at band practice when he saw that?
yeah,
Yeah, he was at
he read it,
marching
yeah.
band practice, and saw somebody freestyling. And
And he just said that this is, I mean, those kind of things are game changers, life changers. And, unfortunately, disc golf, for as wonderful as it is, just doesn't lend itself to that kind of immediate spectacle, that immediate awe. You kind of have to know about disc golf to know, oh, wow, that's an amazing drive that guy just did. Because I can't even see where it went. But if you see someone do some move and do a 360 and catch it between their legs while they're standing on their head, that's impressive. So just before we wrap up here, let's talk about going forward into 2024. We have absolutely cemented in the schedule for the next 5 weeks. We're going to be doing Sundays, same time, starting 3 o'clock Central, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. We have the next 5 weeks a series on Pioneer Women of Disc Golf. We're going to start with Tita Ugaldi next Sunday. We have Tammy Pelicane on the 14th. On the 21st is Sue Horn. The 28th, Cheryl Newland, which you want to tune into
Boxcar
that.
Mama.
And we're going to finish the series on Pioneer Women of Disc Golf with Michelle Marini. We're looking to try to book her husband, Dave Marini, for the week after. Just a quick note about Dave Marini. He is central to, he founded the Freestyle Players Association and certainly one of the longtime freestyle players. And for those of us in the Can-Am region, his longtime freestyle partner, Doug Correa, who we should think about having as a possible future
The
guest.
Korea.
Now, other guests beyond Dave Marini that we have commitments, not yet specific fixed dates. Captain Snap, Mike Conger, and George Sappenfield are going to return. George is going to return. And then we have commitments verbal commitments from John Kirkland, Joanne Gallagher, Carlton Howard, Alan Beaver, Schwebby, and RJ Jerez, in addition to Barsby, Rico, and Greenwell. And then we have a wish list of people that we'd love to sit down and get on the show. And that wish list is huge.
Well, and Kale's indicated that he'd jump. Kale LaVisca at Harold Hampton's interested for sure as well. Double G also has said that he'd be on. It's just a matter of pinning him down. But then, like the rest of these guys, like we just got to talk to him and make it happen. Like Stork, Jim Palmieri, Mike Randolph's already committed in a very wishy-washy way.
Nice.
Becky Powell is definitely somebody we got to get on. Liz Acosta has just, got too much to say to not have her on. Both Jeff and Johnny need to be on. Alyssa everybody from the Jenkins family that we can get on. Kim Westerfield, obviously Barry Schultz and Harold Duvall need to come back. And then we've already got the champ scheduled the week of the World. So we're just going to let that part of the cat out of the bag. We've talked to him about this and we were going to try to do it before the World's last year or this year. And he's already on board for being on our show for the week of Pro Worlds this year in the summertime. So we will definitely have something cool leading up to that. And then, the design week idea is definitely something we want to do this year. I don't know if it'll be a week or a 2 week or a month kind of thing, but we're definitely gonna go with that. And based on our conversation yesterday, I think that we're gonna try to run with Monday evenings when we shift from the weekend.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's going to be times, and like we talked yesterday, I'm sure there's going to be times where we have to deviate from Monday nights, but as of now, that's what we're going to try to roll with. We think that there's less conflicts on Mondays, but I'm not sure that there's any day of the week that's not going to have a conflict on it.
So just to be clear, we're going to be doing January and February as Sundays. And Monday, March 6th, I believe, is the first month, or Monday, March 4th is going to be our first shift over to the Mondays. And hopefully that'll work out. I think you're right. I think there's little chance or less chance of conflicts. It's certainly off of football season, so there's no Monday night football we have to worry about.
Right.
I'm really super stoked that we're gonna get Climo, the champ, when we saw him at Rock Hill. He was the one he also came up to us and told us that just a conversation when we were hanging out, just chatting. He mentioned that he had seen the Levon Wolf show, and I thought that was cool.
It's a good episode, without a doubt.
All right, my man, you go enjoy a wonderful New Year's Eve game with the Stars. Hopefully they deliver a victory over who? Who are you playing again?
Blackhawks.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, I don't care about your young rookie. We got Miro Heiskanen for him. Okay.
That's the Bedard show. That's right. I forgot. Well, at least they don't have Patrick Kane anymore.
Yeah, but he's lighting it up.
Oh, they always do.
He's killing it in Detroit. Almost like a new man at the age of 35.
So thank you everybody for your support. Thanks for all the great comments. Thank you to all our guests in 2023, 2022, and I look forward to meeting all of our guests coming up for 2024. I think it's going to be another great great year ahead. Lots of great stories to be able to tell. And Mace, I always look forward to hanging out with you.
Right on, brother.
So once again,
Yeah,
everybody, no,
thanks a
sorry.
lot. Really appreciate your support. We'll have more to tell you soon, real soon.
But tune in, join us, please. January 7th, 1 o'clock Pacific, 3 o'clock Central, 4 o'clock Eastern, for a wonderful conversation with Tito Ugalde, PDJ number 83. Yo.
We should tell him about the question. So we've talked and we decided that we were going to add an element to this. And since, we're both old guys and keeping up with some of this stuff is all we can pull off. Leading up to these shows, and we'll have to work out the logistics on this, but we want to give y'all an opportunity to ask a question. And I'm not saying about bombarding us in the comments with a bunch of different questions. Like, we want to have a little bit of time to plan this out. And so I'm gonna post this tomorrow on the Good Times Hour Facebook page, and it'll subsequently go on my other Facebook pages as well. And so, but let's go to the the Good Times Hour Facebook page. If you have a question that you would like us to ask Tita, or if you have a couple of questions, let's put them in there, individual questions, and then we're gonna discuss it with her and see, what she wants to talk about and see what she wants to answer. And so that'll make it a little bit. It'll leave us in a situation where it's not just a free for all, and we have a little time so that it's not just necessarily a one sentence question with a 2-word answer. Hopefully maybe that'll stimulate a story or something like that. So if you got any questions, maybe about one of those $50,000 events, or something for Tita, I'll post it yet tomorrow, and then we'll take a look through midweek, like probably at the end of the day, Wednesday, and kind of run it by her and see where she's at and what she thinks and what we think. And we'll pick a couple questions, maybe, 2, 3 of them, and we'll roll into the show with that. Roll that into the show.
We're certainly going to try. Like you said, we're a couple of old fogies, and we'll do what we can. Don't inundate us with a lot of idiotic questions, but maybe
Yeah.
some of you out there have certain stories, certain perspectives, certain experiences that can open up an interesting dimension to a story. So,
Without a
hopefully,
doubt. And those kind of stories are ones we really want to tell.
absolutely.
So, hey, everybody, Happy New Year. Be safe out there. If you drink, get an Uber or a Lyft, and we'll see you in a week.
See you in 2024. Oh, yeah.
Right on.
All right. Go Stars tonight.
Yes, sir. All right. Later, y'all.